It's reinitializing. It said go live again in a different screen. I thought that was going to work.
Mine says we're streaming live on Facebook, bud.
All right, go live then.
All right. Hey, everybody, this is Christian Pate from the class of 87. I'm here with Steve Rodriguez, my co-host from the class of 86. Tonight, we have a very special and exciting topic. We're going to talk about the top 10 boys teams in Bayshore history. Woo!
And now that we're finally on the air. Now that we're finally on the air. Yes.
So anyway, Steve and I put a lot of hard work into this.
Not very good at it.
We do want to reiterate, of course, that the views and opinions of this show are solely ours and not in any way affiliated with the Bayshore Christian School or its official alumni page. Having said that, Steve, you got anything else you want to say in intro?
No, other than I'm very sorry that we suck at technology. So.
Oh, man.
My son is at the beach, so I couldn't call him. I'm here by myself, and so it didn't work very well.
Yeah, he's got to be punished.
Right.
Oh. All right, without further ado, guys, I've got barbecue and I've got bourbon, and I'm ready to get into this thing. Steve and I have selected a few honorable mentions. I'm going to list mine. He'll chime in with his, and we're just going to see how this goes, guys, all right? So anyway, my first honorable mention is 1988. Woo! 88! What do you think about that, Steve? 1988.
Well, do we have anybody from 88 that's still with us, or did they leave after we couldn't figure out the tech? Who is that? Fayed? That's Fayeda, Noriega, and Blocker that you don't have on your list.
Right.
Who else was on that team? Chris Fernandez, had a young Peterson, maybe? Yeah.
Yeah, a young Peterson, J.J. Garnett, young J.J. Garnett, Jimmy Carter.
Yep.
Yeah. So 88 went 22-6. Had a really great regular season. Leading scorers were Robert Fayed and Kevin Noriega, each averaged about 20 points a game, carrying the offensive load. Unfortunately, and this is one of those big, what if questions, what if Kevin Noriega doesn't break his wrist going into the districts?
Right. Yeah. I mean, we ought to have a show about all the what ifs in Bayshore history, including Tree, Tree helped us get on the air here. Having him that senior year would have been good, but yeah, that's a great story, that 88 team, if Noriega doesn't get hurt. It's probably a 5-4 run. Yeah,
thanks, Tree, by the way, for the information. So that's really all we got for 1988. Want to give them a shout out to one of our gold stars. We participated teams, had they gone far, they probably have, honestly, they had a good chance of knocking into the top 10, probably if Noriega doesn't get hurt. It's a really strong team, really strong starting five. And that's it for 88. Steve, do you have one you want to bring up?
Are we going to go back and forth, not all at once, our honorable mention?
We just go back and forth.
Well, I want to go ahead then and give a shout out to the 2000 teams that won district titles 08, 14, and 2017. Dwayne Pippen did a great job of keeping the program rolling. Got a district title in 08. That group and those players deserve credit for that. Problem I had with the 2000, those three teams, was I could not find enough video support to be able to gauge their performances. And also the schedules just did not match up with other teams. That's really, before I flip it back to you, I want to give my criteria. My criteria starts with, did you go to the Final Four? There's only 8 of those. The next criteria is overall record. Did you win a district title? Did you win a Bay Conference title? How many wins against public schools? Public school games in which you were competitive? How did you do against your own era, meaning 1A schools at that time? How many college signees did you have? How many postseason accolades? So one team may have 5 things, another may 6. And then, of course, there's the eye test. So in trying to evaluate all this stuff, those 3 teams in 2000s deserve credit for winning the district and carrying the Bayshore name proudly. But they did not have all of the data to support being a top 10 team. So that's one of my honorable mentions. Back to you.
Yeah. That's funny you mentioned that, because those are my exact three next teams.
Oh, sorry. Sorry.
No, that's great. Just shows that great minds think alike.
That's right.
So anyway, I mean, you pretty much hit it all on the head. You've given the criteria. I want to give a shout out to the 2018, went 19-9, lost in sectional to Lakeland Christian. I tell you what, that 2018 by Coach Don Pippin, they played a tough schedule, man. They went up against Bishop McLaughlin Catholic, IMG Academy, Tampa Prep, Jesuit, Berkeley Prep. They didn't shy away from anyone. And so they ended up with a 19-9 record. Key players were Fred Lewis, who averaged about 16.5 points a game and 7 rebounds a game. Nathan Romo and Jacob Ammerman averaged 5.7 rebounds per game.
You did your research.
Yeah.
When did Dwayne become Don Pippin? Because I know Don Pippin is his dad. When did that happen?
Well, according to Don, he's always been Don. The only people that ever called him Dwayne was his sister, because she called him Dwayne at school. Everybody else called him Dwayne.
Yeah, I got right. All right. So I learned something. There you go.
Yeah. So anyway, go ahead.
No, sorry.
So that's the rundown of the 2018, 2014, real quick. 24-4 record. Lost in sectional, 69-53, Academy at the Lakes. I think Steve had already mentioned one of the criteria is your schedule, strength of schedule. And honestly, that 2014 had a pretty weak schedule. Doesn't look like they even played anybody outside of 1A. I mean, they held their own against 1A, obviously 24-4, but come on, man, you got to step up and play somebody. Matthew Eckerman led that team with 14.3 points a game. Other notable starters was Josh Humphreys and then Eric Davis, who averaged 14.2 rebounds a game, which is huge.
Sure.
Lastly, Stephen mentioned the 2017 team, 20-4, lost in sectionals, got blown out actually in sectionals by Florida Educational Institute. Again, too weak of a schedule to really be considered for the top 10. 24 again against 1A opponents. That's great. That's awesome. But you got to play somebody. Key player for that team was David Santiago, averaged 13.1 points per game.
He was really good.
Yeah. Jeremiah Wicks is a curious cat. He was a freshman on this 2017 team, and he'll actually come up later. He averaged 12.3 points per game as a freshman starter for the varsity. That's tremendous. Yeah. And then the other big guy on that team, his name was Christian Anderson, and he averaged 11.5 points per game.
Very good.
Steve, you got any other honorable mentions?
Yeah, I got a few more. Another thing I wanted to say about, so I mentioned our criteria. Chris may have a different criteria than me. I think we have this mostly the same. We have a couple of maybe different areas in which we judge these teams. But before I mention that, I wanted to say that we're doing this list because it's our show. That's I mean, this is our top 10. Right. This is our list. Nothing personal. We love every Bayshore graduate, or you wouldn't have two 50-plus-year-olds doing a podcast about Christian high school basketball from 30 years ago. So obviously, we love the school and love everybody that carried the Bayshore banner. But we also have experience. I mean, I was looking at the Prep Hoops page in the Tampa Tribune as a 14-year-old starter on varsity every single day. Who's scoring? Who's the best teams? So you were immediately familiar with Valdez. And in my household, my dad knew Herman. So but even before I got to Bayshore, I was learning about Bayshore Christian basketball. Then, of course, we played there in the mid to late 80s. Then we coached there in the 90s. You coached there in the 2000s. So we have intimate experience with most of Bayshore's Valdez, Coach Sam, Dibble history from 82 through 2002. I think that we did, you especially did a lot of research on the 2000 teams. You took it very seriously. So I think that we have a really good knowledge, but yeah, we're just doing it because this is our idea and our show. But as far as I have a couple more honorable mentions. One was 86, only because Valdez himself said it was the toughest team and the most competitive team he ever had, and that included the Robinson teams. He was quoted in the paper, and he said it recently with us on the podcast. And back then, you didn't get expelled or suspended for the season. You just got a letter from the state of Florida. So we were in a couple of fights. We beat a bunch of ranked teams, but we do not belong on the top 10 list, obviously. And then, of course, the last thing I would say is I'm not counting 2019 and 2020 until they graduate. I mean, 2020 with Cruz, who's going to be Division I, Fitzgerald's probably Division I, had a lot of injuries. They played probably the toughest schedule anybody's played in a long time. Coach Day had a great team. So that, to me, is a top 5 Bayshore team. But they're not going to be on my list tonight because I need them to actually graduate, become adults, and have some time before we look back. But certainly they are deserving. They just don't meet my criteria. So that's it for me. Back to you.
All right. I've got one last honorable mention team I want to mention, and that's the 1990 team. That team went 24-5. Yeah. Lost in sectionals to Moorhaven. Got blown out by Moorhaven by about 25 points. But that was a good team. They had Brian Peterson on that team. He was, I think, a junior that year. J.J. Garnett senior year. J.J. Garnett ended up being a 1,000+ point club member for Bayshore. They ended up, the reason I put them in the honorable mentions is because they did have some pretty big games they played, and they actually beat Robinson that year. And they lost a tough loss in a close game to Baldwinsville.
So I gotta argue with you about the honorable mention. You're leaving 90 off the top 10. District champs, Bay Conference champs, 19 games in a row. Peterson, JJ, Beckman, Bloom, Schramm, and they're not on the top 10?
Nope, not top 10.
Okay. That automatically disqualifies you on this session.
Oh, they were all so close. And I tell you what, I got to be honest, it was between them and one other team. Kind of went back and forth. Just felt like the other team had a tougher schedule. I mean, the other team, we're going to get to it in a second, but, we'll get to it right now.
You just listed Robinson, 4A Baldwinsville out of New York. They had a tough schedule. So I'm calling ultimate FUBAR on that pick. That they should be in the top 10. But it's your top 10, so.
That's right. And by the way, we want to mention, this is not Steve and Chris's top 10. This is Steve's top 10 and then Chris's top 10. Two distinct different things.
Right. Well, I hope everybody, I hope the few people who watch, I hope the few people that are watching, and my family is not. So the numbers, aren't we going to do better than Thursday Night Football? It's the Jets and your Broncos, right? So we should do better.
Yeah, absolutely, man, dude. Broncos, you kidding me? Worst team in the NFL?
Right.
We're definitely better than them for sure.
So hopefully if you're in any of these classes, you comment whether we're doing the right thing or whether you think we're crazy. Feel free to share it.
Absolutely. Make your own top 10. We'll share it out here.
That's right. All right. So I'm good. I've shared my criteria, my honorable mention. What do you got?
All right. So let's go ahead and jump into it. Starting out at number 10. So for me, number 10, the team just barely eked it out against the team of 1990. This team went 18-19, went to the Final Four, lost them alone by 27. Malone at the time was 28-9. Key wins for this team were against St. Pete Catholic. Key losses were against Sebring, Santa Fe Catholic, St. Pete Catholic, Wauchula, Wymore Tech, and Jesuit. Some pretty heavy hitters on that key loss program. Key players for this team: Jed Kirby, honorable mention All-County, state finals all-tournament team, All-Bay Conference. John Blocker, who we just had on here last week, honorable mention All-County. Bo Heinley, the owner of the greatest shot in Bayshore history, honorable mention All-County. Scott Crone, Jonathan Fielder, All-Bay Conference. So this team is 1995. That's my number 10 team.
Well, let's make no mistake. Well, first off, the technology continues. I'm getting an Adobe update right in front of my screen. Now I'm back. I agree. 94, I don't know if you can see it. 94, 95, 18 and 19. Listen, you already listed the players, the Blockmeister, John Blocker. This team was snake bit. If Tree White comes back for his senior year, and Tree, I hope is watching because I love me some Tree. Tree comes back and Polito comes back, they don't lose 19 games. That's number one. Number two, this is the first season of the Coach Sam era, and there is some unbelievable talent on this team, but they really had struggles living up to, the expectations. They had injuries, they had sickness, they had discipline issues. And so, you listed some of the losses. What's most memorable is that they did not win Bay Conference. They did not win district. The district they should have won. They blew a late lead against Lakeland Christian. Nonetheless, when you go to the Final Four on the backs of what is the greatest moment, a buzzer-beating backboard bank shot at the buzzer when you've been down double digits all game in the sectional, might be called regional back then, but sectional final, that gets you into the top 10. That was a top 10 roster. It didn't live up to expectations, but a Final Four and a magical moment, they move into number 10 for me as well.
All right. So number 10, we got 1995. Hey, we agree on one at least.
Right. So do I go next? Do I go next?
Yep, you're next.
Where's my list? All right, here we go. It's grumpy old men. Let me write my marker here. Number 9. This team is one of my favorite teams of all time. This team, and I don't know if it's 26-9 or 26-10. I'm going 1997 for number 9. 1997. If there was a hardcore Bayshore player top 10 list, my number 1 would be Todd Kill Everyone Brandenburger. Todd Brandenburger would show up at school at Bayshore in the mornings with those strength shoes. They had like 2 inches of up on your toes, and he would run suicides in strength shoes before school and after school. And he was the greatest. And if you look at that roster, let me find my list here. That roster had Josh Nunley, Adam Latanzi could shoot threes. You had Brandenburger, Damon Allen. You had Elijah, Joe Nania. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, Joe. Sorry. Calvin Cummings, Adam Atkins, Hugh Thomas, Russ Ballingy, Old Fitzpatrick, Andrew Polito himself, and John Ramos. What a great roster. Had a great season. To me, it was also the closest to, this is the last thing I'll say, and then I'll turn it over to you. It was actually the closest, I think, to 1987 to actually winning it all. That team lost in the sectional final, the last game to go to the Final Four, the Elite Eight, in triple overtime to Northwest Christian. 80-78, I think it was, or 80-79. Northwest Christian left that game and won the state title. They won both state championship games by 12, 14 points. So you can argue the triple overtime game with Bayshore was the state title game. And if we could have made 5% more of our free throws, I think you told me the number, it was like 24-43, something like that, 26-43.
Yeah, 24-43.
Yeah, 19 missed free throws and a triple overtime loss to the eventual state champion, 1 game from the Final Four. If you look at all the Bayshore teams, I got them at number 9. They were this close to being top 3 and one of the greats. And when you've got Brandenburger, this is Coach Sam's last year. It's his third. The Coach Sam era ends with this game. When you've got Brandenburger single-handedly carrying all those guys to the district title at Keswick, it was just a great Bayshore team. I love that team. So that's my number 9, 1997. Back to you.
All right. Yeah, great team. I've got for number 9, they were 22-7. Went to the Final Four. Lost to Miami Kendall Acres, 65-45. This team had key losses to Plant City, who would go on and beat the next year. People don't know that back in the early 80s, Plant City was one of the predominant Hillsborough County powers, with guys like Horace Broadnecks. So go the next year and beat Plant City's phenomenal. They lost to them in a close game in 84. Their key players were John Edwards, John Harville, JoJo Santiago, Kenny Cox. This team was so guard heavy. I tell you what, man, if they had one really, really good big player, say, for example, like in 85, they had Bernard Staley. If he had been there in 84, this team would probably be a lot higher on my list. But anyway, this team is 1984's 22-7 Final Four team.
That's a really good selection. I think they did have a not equivalent to Kelvin by leaps and bounds, and certainly not in the same class as Bernard Staley. But Mike Kendall was a long time. He was about 6'6", 6'7". That was a good basketball team. And it was, of course, the OGs, the original gangsters. They were the first Final Four team. And when you've got the names you listed, what a great basketball team that was. So I think that's a really great pick, and obviously great to remember those guys. So you've got your next one as well, number 8.
Yeah. And just one more thing about 1984. Like I said, man, this team had so great guard play. I mean, phenomenal. You're not going to find, 3 guys to put out front there that are going to do any better job than JoJo, John, and John. So anyway, my number 9 is 1984. My number 8's already been mentioned. Came in as Steve's number 9. It's 1997 with a 26-10 record, a sectional loss in double overtime to Northwest Christian. He's already mentioned the players real quickly. Again, Damon Allen, first-team All-County. Drew Polito, first-team All-County. Hugh Thomas, honorable mention All-County. Todd Brandenburg, the man himself, the legend. I tell you what, man, if you want to hear some real stories about a real Bayshore basketball player, ask them time to hear about Todd Brandenburg. Just a complete animal. And I don't know if you mentioned this guy or not, Steve, but you may have left off Elijah Piazza.
I mentioned him, but I didn't talk about what he did for that team. So yeah, you're right.
Yeah, I mean, so it was a strong team. The top 6 on this team are probably one of the best top 6 Bayshores ever had. Just like Steve said, man, they ran into a buzzsaw with Northwest Christian. They actually had that game won with 6 seconds left in the fourth quarter. Aaron passed.
Several times they had it won.
Yeah. And unfortunately, I mean, they went like 1 for 6 for 3 throws in the first overtime. But they were still able to hold on, got to the second overtime, and just got squeaked by 79-77. So that's my number 8. Steve, you're up with number 7.
No, I still got to do my 8.
Oh, okay.
We're going back and forth.
Well, you're
an old man.
I had an extra 30 minutes to drink of my bourbon before we started because of the delay.
Number 8 for me is an honorable mention for you. And I don't know how it's not on your top 10 list. And I already disqualified you for that. 1989-90 is my number 8. 1989-90, when I graduated, I went to watch every game that you played in 87. And I watched most of Blocker because he was a teammate of mine. Because I went to college in town at University of Tampa. So I went to watch 88 play a lot. Like you mentioned previously, was honorable mention. 89-90, I was really busy with school and activities. But once they played that Baldwinsville team at the Bay Classic, I can't remember if I was there or not, but I do remember starting to go to the home games after that. And the Peterson, Schramm, JJ, Beckman, those guys won 19 games in a row. And they played, they won the district title, the Bay Conference title. They made it to the sectional final. JJ was 1,000-point scorer. They beat Robinson. They beat Jefferson. They played Keswick in the regionals, who was 31-4. And we usually beat Keswick down into oblivion for 30 years. But it wasn't supposed to be that way that year. Keswick was really good. It's hard to understate for me how good they were with a district title, a Bay Conference title. And they rematched Moorhaven, who played you in 87 in the sectional final. You guys advanced, and of course, Peterson did not for the 1990 team. But what a career for JJ. One of the last thing I'll say about that team is everybody knows sports writers. They start their career with a newspaper, not newspapers not anymore, but like a sports service online, and then move up. One of the writers that covered Bayshore that year was Brett McMurphy, who ended up he's at Fox now. Somebody told me that, maybe Brian Boyard. Brett McMurphy ended up at ESPN and Fox. You have a local Tampa guy covering Bayshore who ends up being a big wheel in national sports coverage. So I just love 1990. That was my number 8. So do I go 7 next, or we flip it back to you? I think I go.
You're 7. Up with number 7.
7. I didn't write it down. Let me get my marker out. But I'll go ahead and start to talk about this team. So I already know when I announce number 7 that some people are going to delete and hang up and get off Facebook because they're going to be very mad and think it should be higher. And the data sort of supports that they had a really good year, and they did. Obviously, they're in the top 10. I mean, remember, Bayshore's been around. Next year is the 50th year. I hope all of us alumni participate in 50th anniversary events. We've had graduating classes, I guess, 45 years or 44 years, and we've had varsity basketball for 45. I mean, to make the top 10, there's a lot of good basketball teams that aren't going to be on this list. I got my number 7. Tree helped us get on this show, for God's sake, and now I'm sure I'm letting you down, buddy. But I've got 93-94 as number 7. And 93-94, you know, they beat, looking at our criteria, they beat Dunellen, which was class 3A. They beat Jacksonville Episcopal, which was 3A at the time. Chiefland was a public school 2A. They lost to. They beat Fort Meade in one of the great Bayshore games ever, because I was asked by Coach Valdez to go scout Fort Meade, and I came back with a scouting report. They can't make a three-pointer if they were standing on the beach trying to throw it in the ocean. And they come out and make like 5 threes to start the game. And I can just see Herman, Coach Valdez, Herman just like probably burning his eyes at me. I was doing the clock that night. But we fell behind by like 13, came back and won by 10. So that was a great win. But Fort Meade was 2A. We beat Bishop Verot. Had a bad loss to St. Pete Catholic. I'll never understand that. St. Pete Catholic was good. It's a 2A school. But this team had 6'9" Tree White, 6'6" Jonathan Fielder, 6'6" Jonathan Johnson, the all-time leading three-point shooter in the state of Florida. That probably got broken in the early 2000s. I'm thinking Teddy Dupay, some others. But he's easily top 10 in three-point shooting and was number 1 at that time. Ernie Matos, I hope you're watching, Ernie. We loved Ernie. Roderick Lewis, Bo Heinley. Really good basketball team. 32-6, ranked top 10 all year. You could feel that the dynasty was struggling. That was the year that Andrick Frazier left. If Andrick stays, you could argue that we could have handled the press and won the state title. So the dynasty is sort of creaking, but it still made it all the way back. Herman calls this the best coaching job he ever did. 1994 is my number 7. What do you got?
Man, oh man. Are you kidding me, brother? Holy cow. The only other team to make the state finals, you got them all the way down at number 7. Bayshore Christian, all-time leading scorers on the team. They got lean length, man. Are you kidding me, bro? No.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, man. The fog of disrespect. Woo. Now, Steve made some great points.
It gets worse here in a minute.
Oh, Lord have mercy. Steve made his points, and, we'll take him for their word. But come on, man.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Anyway, my number 17 wasn't even considered by my co-host due to his criteria, and that's his criteria. That's fine. Nothing wrong with that. But and this is one of the reasons too why 1990 didn't make my list, whereas it made Steve's, because of this one difference in criteria.
Hold on. Before you say it, Tree is commenting online. We would have won if Andrick stayed. And then he's arguing that Admiral Farragut had a 7-footer. Tree, you were better than that 7-footer. That does not count. But all right, back to you.
Admiral Farragut? Come on, man. I'm trying to help you out here, Tree, but man, you're reaching there with Admiral Farragut.
Yeah, and Tree now says he's out of here. Obviously, Chris has got you higher, so hang around.
Oh, man. Anyway, so my number 7, one that probably kept 1990 out of my top 10. This team went 19-9, went to the Final Four, lost to Orlando Christian Prep. Key wins against Robinson, King, Bishop McLaughlin, Durant. Key losses were to Hillsborough, Orlando Lakes, Hollandale. They got a Division I player on their team. They've got everything. Key players are C.J. Cruz, David Fitzgerald, Deion Brown, and Jeremiah Wicks. This is 2020 Final Four team, coached by Roderick Day.
Woo-hoo! Well, yeah, I mean, I wish my criteria was different because it would include 2020, right? They were great. They got a Division I in Cruz. They probably got another Division I in Fitzgerald. They lost a kid to injury. They lost a kid to transfer.
Yeah.
You just rattled off the number of public school victories. That really moves you up in my book. So they're certainly worthy of that ranking. So that's a good ranking for them.
Yeah. Yeah, that injury was huge, man. Their starting point guard, who had been a 4-year starter, blew his ACL out. He was averaging like 12 and a half a game, about 7 assists a game. Then unfortunately they had a 6'5" guy transfer out. But yeah, I mean, if that team doesn't lose those 2 starters right there, their record looks a lot better. And who knows what they do against the competition at the Final Four. But anyway,
Right.
So where are we at? We're at 6.
Yeah, you're number 6 pick.
I'm number 6. All right. Well, we may lose some more listeners and watchers on this one. Stick around with us hopefully till the end. This team was long and lean as well. They went 33-4. Lost in the semifinals to Grand Ridge. Had key wins against East Bay and Brooksville Central. Didn't really have any key losses because other than East Bay and Brooksville Central, they didn't play a very hard schedule. Everything else was mostly 1A. Their key players were Joseph Rollins, who was second in the county in scoring at 23 points a game. He made all-county. Kyle Connect could play every position on the floor. Jared Piazza was their point guard, and they had a sensation named Brandon Harrison. This is the 2001 Bayshore team.
Hold on. Jared Piazza just said online, "I'm out, no way." Sorry.
You got to play somebody, man. If I had some tape to watch you guys actually play somebody other than midgets. Yeah.
You could also say the show is politically incorrect. So.
Yeah. So anyway, that's where I got 2001 at number 6.
Well, we agree on something. So I know Kyle Connect right now is like on fire, and my text is going to be blowing up probably pretty quickly here with Kyle. I just agree with all the things you shared. For me, it would help if I had some video. I coached against that team at another school. I scouted that team. It was, if you watch the video we do have, my goodness. I mean, Connect was unguardable. Joseph Rollins was unguardable. Brandon Harrison, Sam Smith, is that the name? It was just a great basketball team. But the problem for me was, especially without more video to watch, the schedule was simply not sufficient. Now, that's not their fault. The players don't make the schedule. But they did not have enough wins against high-level guys. And when you think all the guys on that team that we really love, we loved Jared Piazza, loved all those guys, but it just wasn't a good enough schedule to move them any higher. I mean, when we start talking about some of the other schedules coming up, it just didn't match up. So one of the great teams of all time, I call it the Dibble Renaissance, because from 98, 99 to, is that right, to 2001, those 3 years, Dibble gave us some 19-21 seasons, a 33-win season, a district title, went to the state finals. Most importantly, when you think about, which again, 01 is my number 6 as well. We had lost the Bay Conference for like 6 or 7 years in a row at that time. And Piazza, Connect, Harrison, Rollins, all the guys are on that team, and forgive me if I'm forgetting anybody. They brought the Bay Conference banner back, and they did it against Tampa Prep. That to me buys you a lot of rounds at anywhere we go when we go back to Florida and celebrate in a reunion, because that matters, especially to old alumni like us. So they did a lot of great things, and number 6 ain't bad out of 44 years, but it just wasn't. I just didn't have enough evidence to move them any higher. So that's my number 6 as well, 2001. So I guess I'm doing number 5 now.
Yep, you're number 5.
I've not been doing my white sheet of paper, so let me try to find.
Yeah, I do want to say one more thing about that 2001 team. It was a fast team, and it was a fast team that could run the floor. And I tell you what, man, they probably beat anybody at track meet. But they didn't really have a lot of height. They didn't have anybody over 6'2", and so as a whole, they weren't as well rounded as some of the other teams are. You know, I mean, they had great guard play. You kidding me? Rollins, Piazza, Connect. Those guys can play all, the guard positions. Connect and Rollins can play both down low and post up, but not at the same level as like somebody that's like 6'5", 6'6", and polished. So yeah, had they played, a stronger schedule and maybe had one more big man.
So Piazza's commenting online 5A teams wouldn't play us. 33-4 gets 6 with a question mark. And then he says a very important line, we saved the legacy. I mean, you're right, Jared. You're right, Jared. I wish we had you on. We'll eventually have you on here in the coming months as we do all these shows. So you're exactly right on all those points. Again, we're just stuck with the evidence of opponents as compared to other teams. It just didn't work. But like Chris just said, the amount of talent on those teams was unbelievable. All right, so 01 was number 6. Now, are you about to give your number 6?
No, mine was the same.
Okay, that's right.
Yeah.
So I got number 5 then. Mine, Chris already mentioned. Dun, dun, dun. What came out in 1984? Reagan was reelected. What movie came out? I think Terminator came out. This was the original gangsters, the OGs. Scott Swisher, if you're watching, you call it the pretty OGs. This is John Arville, John Edwards, Cox, Santiago, all the people that Chris mentioned earlier. And so I won't be long on this one, just to say you win the district title, you win the Bay Conference title, you play a public high school schedule. But we haven't mentioned yet, and this is very important. In the 80s into the early 90s, 1A district basketball there was only 4 classifications. So nowadays it's like 0 to 200 students makes up 1A or whatever it is. Back then it was 0 to 450 students in the high school make up 1A. We had frost-proof freaking high school with Alvin, future Dallas Cowboys Harper in our district for 3 years. Lakeland Christian, the 84 team, faced Livingston Chapman and Garrett Williams. Livingston Chapman played at the University of Florida and was 6'7". Garrett Williams played at University in Central Florida after he went to Polk Community. So they had 2 future Division I guys. So 1A district in the early to mid 80s had public schools in it, and you had many more athletes that attended Christian schools than what you see with the watered down 8 classifications of Florida today. That doesn't mean we don't have great teams, because like you just said, 2020 has 2 Division I guys. Coach Day has it going at Bayshore. So it's not that you can't have it. It's just that every night in basketball, even if it wasn't a public school, was a game that you had to fight to the death to win back in those days. So that's what I got. That was a great basketball team. That's my number 5, 83, 84, the original OGs, first Final Four team. Back to you.
Yeah, great team. And, I may have had them higher had I ever seen them play. Steve makes a good point, though, about the level of competition. Back then, again, there was only 4 classifications where now you have like 8 or 9, and it's a little bit more watered down. Anyway, so my number 5 has already been mentioned by Steve. He disrespected them at number 7, I think. I've got them at number 5. Key wins were against Fort Meade. They're led by Johnson. Huh?
What year is it?
1994.
Woo! Tree, are you still there, buddy?
Yeah, state finalists, lost to Malone in state finals. The only other state final team besides 87 to make the finals. Their key players were Jonathan Johnson, who was all-world. He was first-team All-Tribune, first-team All-State. He set the state single-season three-point record that year, led the county in scoring. You had Bo Heinley, who was honorable mention All-County. They were tall. They had John the fielder and Traverse Tree White tearing it up down low. They had a serviceable guard, Ernie Matos, can come in, hit the 3. I mean, this team was phenomenal. Had a great record. They did have 6 losses, which is a little concerning to me. And again, it's about the eye test and also about the level of competition. And they didn't really have a lot of public schools on their level of competition either. So that's why I don't have them higher. Had I seen them play against other teams that were higher in talent, and it would probably have been a little bit higher. But anyway, I've got it number 5, 1994.
Well, it looks like Tree is loving you online. He's got like the muscle shirt thing. He's got a smiley face. And then Connect. Thank God he hasn't blown up my phone, but he says he's saving his arguments for when we finish the show. That's probably to prevent us from challenging his arguments on the show. So that's a smart move, Connect. That's why you get paid the big bucks.
Yeah.
So I agree with, your number 5 pick is really good. One thing I forgot to mention when I was talking about him, you probably remember this. In the newspaper, they interviewed, in the post game, they're talking about as I remember it was after the Final Four game of the championship, and they asked them, "Aren't short people allowed in God's kingdom?" Because 6'10", 6'11", 6'6", 6'6". That was a huge basketball team.
Yeah.
If Andrick comes back, you handle the pressure a little better. Yeah, they might have been able to finally get us that trophy. So very good pick for your number 5.
Yeah. So where are we at? Number 4?
Yep.
Who's up? Me or you?
You're up.
All right. I'm up. Number 4. This team has not been mentioned yet, so it's obviously in both of our top 4. This team had key wins against Broward Christian and Westminster.
Hold on. Jared just said online, 6 bro, 33-4, never lost at home, Final Four. We would have smoked every team since 1994. I'm going to give you one chance, Jared, to delete that and make a correction. Because the teams we got coming up, I bet you Connect agrees, there's a few of them that would not have happened. But go ahead.
Yeah. So anyway, I've got this team at number 4. It's 34-2. They went to the Final Four, lost to Malone, who ended up being the eventual state champion. Key players was Major Bloom, Albert Beckman, Dalvin Devine, Joe Place, and Brian Peterson. And I tell you, the reason I like this team, and I thought about even putting them higher, but I tell you what, the 3 teams above this are just, I don't know, just a little bit more superior than this team. But this team had such depth in terms of they had all 5 of their starters scored in double digits. All right, average 10 or more points a game. I mean, think about that for a second. I mean, who do you stop? I mean, granted, you have Brian Peterson's average about 30 a game, but every one of those other guys could hold their own on any given night. That's what I really liked about this team is that they could pretty much do it all from any place on the floor. So yeah, I've got it number 4, 1991 Final Four. Lost to Malone.
We agree again. We agreed on 10, 6, and now 4. 1990, 91. Chris read off the stats. It's just unbelievable. Peterson, which we hope to have on the show, I had a good conversation with him. What a nice man. All of our alumni are really just great people, and it's great when I get to talk to you guys.
Yeah, Division One Georgia.
Right. He signed with Georgia. He played for the United States travel team in the summer, which played against the Soviet Union back then. It might have been Russia by then. I don't remember.
Right.
34-2, like you mentioned. Some really interesting stories on that team that we'll get more of if we can get Brian on the show. One was they did not play a lot of public schools. I don't see any on the schedule that I could find. That hurts them in terms of moving them any higher. Like you said, it's pretty hard to move higher with all the great teams in Bayshore history, but no public school wins, but just the consistency of domination. District champs, Bay Conference champs, great story. They went down on a Friday and Saturday night. And I remember seeing these scores in what was back then the USA Today. They would have the sports section would have your state, Alabama, Florida, Georgia, and you could look at rankings for every class in your state, and they would give scores. And I remember seeing this because I was in law school at the time, and they went down to Broward and beat number 4 Broward Christian 64-62. I think Dalvin Devine steals the ball and scores a layup like at the buzzer. The next night, they're playing number 1 ranked Fort Lauderdale Westminster with Danny Cannell, the future Florida State and NFL quarterback, made the playoffs with the Giants and the Broncos. They won that game 74-72 in overtime, thanks to Peterson scoring like 31. He scored 7 of our 9 points in overtime. Their only regular season loss, we don't know for sure, but I think, and somebody, if you're watching, please let us know, was the rematch with Danny Cannell and Fort Lauderdale Westminster back at Bayshore. We lost by 2 there. So we beat them by 2 at their place, lost by 2 at home. That was one of the Peterson era was just great. 89-90 and 90-91 was just great. And that was like the crowning year. If we could have got a trophy that year, we obviously would have moved them to number 1. But, always a bridesmaid, never a bride. It was just a Final Four run. I have them number 4 as well, but what a great team. So I'm up now with number 3.
Number three.
This is where it's going to get a little dicey, and I know that people are going to be commenting, and making fun of me as senile and crazy and old and dumb. I know you are. This this team, because when I say this team, it's going to immediately put another team at number 2. And I thought about it as hard as I possibly can. And therefore, I want to give my number 2 first. Can I do that?
Yeah, because I have a feeling your number 2 and 3 are the same as my 2 and 3, just in a different order.
Okay. So my number 2, I'm gonna go ahead and say instead of my number 3, and I'll just let you talk about number 3, because like you said, they're probably flip-flopped. My number 2 is 1992, who did not go to the Final Four. Please, no comments, at least until I finish. If you look at the scores of this team, it's unmatched by any Bayshore team, including who I have as number 1. They went 9-1 against higher classification schools. They went 5-1 against public high schools. They beat Plant, Jesuit, Tampa Catholic, all by double digits. Well, the Plant game might have been 8, but Tampa Catholic and Jesuit by double digits. There's nothing we've ever seen like the Derek and Andrick show from 1992. And all the kids that played on that team, please remind us, it's not that we're old. We didn't, it's a long time ago. We're trying to do research. We don't want to leave anybody out. Obviously, Jonathan Johnson was on that team. Those guys, I had to put at number 2. So yes, 93 went to the Final Four with basically the same cast. 93 did not beat everyone like 92 did. Now you're going to say, yeah, well, 92 choked in the regional final, didn't go to the Final Four. That's true. That was one of the worst losses in school history, because it never should happen. But dear Lord, they slaughtered everything in their path. And it wasn't just 1A teams. It was more public schools than anybody's ever beaten. So that's my number 2. My number 3 is going to be your number 2. Go ahead and tell us and fill us in. You're up.
So Steve's number 2 was 1992, yeah? Well, my number 3 is 1992. And everything that Steve said about this team is absolutely correct. Probably, honestly, may have almost been the greatest team in Bayshore history. They did lose the Elite Eight, however, to Braden Christian, which to me is unforgivable. But they beat teams like Jesuit. They beat Louisville. They beat 2 teams from Canada, for Christ's sakes. I mean, come on south of the border. They beat Clearwater Central Catholic. They beat Tampa Catholic. They beat everybody that you put in their way. They did lose to Daytona Seabreeze, huge big 4A school out of Daytona. No loss there, But yeah, Derek Smith. I mean, he was all Bay Conference. He was Keswick Suncoast Classic MVP. Andrick Frazier, all conference. Jonathan Johnson, all conference. Rodney Lewis, all conference. I mean, come on, give me a break. You got 4 guys, 4 of the 5 starters are all conference in the 92 team.
That's right.
I mean, so to say who's right or wrong in this situation is almost impossible. I put obviously the 93 team ahead of the number 92 team. Basically, the only reason I did that is because it's the exact same team. It's almost the same starting 5. All 4 of the same ones. The 93 team had Eric Wright as well as a starter, which I think made them a little bit stronger overall. And also, how can you be better than yourself, when you're a year older? So that's kind of my crazy criteria about it, I mean, I think these two teams here are pick'ems. Again, in 93, they beat Jesuit, they beat Berkeley Prep, they beat a state-ranked Tampa Catholic team at the time. I mean, their losses were not, were no way to inferior teams. They lost to Plant City, Clearwater. Again, they lost to Tampa Catholic in a rematch, and they lost to Lake Gibson. All 3A, 4A schools. So yeah, like I said, this 2 and 3 is kind of a pick-em thing. I just went with the fact that they were a year older, so obviously they had to be a year better. But I think you either way on this one.
I think they deserve great credit for having such a monumental, catastrophic, apocalyptic loss and coming back and finishing the job by getting to the Final Four.
Right.
That team was tied with 2 minutes to go with Hollywood Christian in the semifinal game. And Hollywood Christian scored the last 11 points. Some free throws, you're fouling. But the game was tied 60-60 with 2 minutes to go. And Hollywood scores the last 11 in the state semifinal. So that 93 team certainly to come back after the 92 season, what an amazing accomplishment. So you're exactly right there. I think we need to mention also, talking about those two teams in the Tampa Catholic game, we were in touch, you and I were in touch with Don Desagua from Tampa Catholic. And Desagua's telling us a story. One of those games at Bayshore, his car, he comes out after he just lost. Derek and Andrick go to school on him. He comes out and his car is stolen. And so somebody stole his car while the game was going on at Bayshore, off of Bayshore's parking lot. And Desagua says that Desagua told me they recovered it. It was all beat up, but that's pretty funny. You get your butt kicked by Coach Valdez in Bayshore, and you come outside and your car's stolen. that's really funny to me. So.
Oh man, I can't imagine a worse night than that.
Oh, that's right. But yeah, so you've got 92 at number 3, 93 at number 2, and I've got it reversed. I've got Connect online saying that he's not saying, he's just saying discounting, how good they were because they played public school when they transferred afterwards, and that's true. Connect was a stud. Harrison was a stud. We're just going by the teams. What's the best team? And the measurement is, if we had more video, we might be able to make a better decision. But based upon the information we have on all this criteria, that was as far as we could go. And that's not anybody who makes this list is Bayshore legends, because this is 10 teams out of 44. I mean, you're really good basketball teams. So we've come to the last one. Do you want to go ahead and share yours?
I'll go ahead and throw the stats out there, and then we can talk about it. This team was 34-3, went to the state finals, lost 85-80 in the finals. One of only 2 teams in Bayshore history to make it to the actual finals. Had key wins against 4A Robinson, 4A Jefferson, 4A Plant. Beat Malone and Miami Berkshire in the playoffs. We're led by a guy that was 6'7", could play the paint like nobody else I've ever seen in high school basketball. He was all conference. He was first team all county, first team all Tribune, first team all state, first team state tournament. Led the county in rebounds at 15.2 a game and second in points per game at 21.3. Signed Division I scholarship right out of high school. This team had one of the best point guards I've ever seen. He was all conference, honorable mention all state. Led the county in free throw sheet at over 90%. Now, not to call anybody out, but if there's anyone on the 2001 team that shot 90% free throws, I'd like to know about it. He was also top 5 in the county in assists per game at 8.7. His co-hearted guard averaged about 6 points and 6 assists a game. This team had forwards that were serviceable with any team, 6'2", 6'3", could play the paint down low, could also dribble and handle the guard position if they had to. Of course, we're talking about Kevin Daniels, Freddie Tomasello, Chris Patterson, Donnie Hamlin, Mike Blocker, and Kevin Noriega, the top 6 for the 1987 state finalist Bayshore Christian team.
Well, that covers it all, right? You also left out Kelvin was voted. Maybe you said it and I missed it. I apologize. Kelvin was voted Hillsborough County Player of the Year, not just first team all county. He was like,
right. You're right. Yeah, I did miss that. Absolutely.
And the team itself was named by Tom McEwen. And young people may not know Tom McEwen was the longtime newspaper columnist for the Tampa Tribune. They named a sports award after him, and it was a Tom McEwen Hillsborough County or City of Tampa Team of the Year, and it could be for any sport, football, basketball, or baseball. And Bayshore, you guys were selected. What's interesting is that when you look at that team, Berkshire in the semifinal game actually matched up pretty well, if not better. They didn't match up with Kelvin, but at the other 4 positions, they were thicker, stronger, quicker, a little bit taller. And that happened a lot when you guys faced public schools. Again, remember, y'all were 7-1 against higher class. You beat Robinson twice, Plant, and Jefferson, among others. And so that team remains my number 1 as well, simply because the data is overwhelming. If you look at every category that I have, Final Four, Bay Conference title, district title, Division I signees, record against public school, competitive against public school, 1A wins. I mean, you guys did not have a 1A loss until you got to that state championship game. And then lastly, you made the state championship game, which only I think 2 or 3 teams have. You played closer in that game than anybody else had. You came from a large deficit and cut it to 3 with about 2 minutes to go, and the other team's calling timeout, and the crowd's going crazy. We've posted the videos on YouTube. So 87 remains number 1 for me. I could be convinced to move some people around with more data, but as of right now, the data doesn't move number 1. Number 1 is far and away still number 1. 92, 93 are close, but not close enough to even consider. 87 is still top of my list as well. So back to you.
All right, so there you have it. There's Steve's top 10. There's Chris's top 10. Like it, love it, leave it. Like you said, this is our show and this is our top 10. We're happy to throw it out there. We do this for our amusement, but we did honestly put a lot of research into this. Looked at all the numbers, looked at the schedules, looked at the players. What's going to be interesting, I guess, to see next is like if we do like a top 15 all-time players and what teams they come from.
I'm worried about that because I don't want to offend anybody. And also, you don't want to leave anybody out that should be on there.
Right.
I think that maybe, I'm not saying we're not going to do it. We're probably going to do it.
We're going to do
it. But we could consider, best first and second team of the 80s, first, second team of the 90s, 2000s, then give a better feel for each era and properly account for the players of each era. But I want to repeat, not only did we have criteria and you went through it, we did a lot of research. There's no way to compare one team with a team from 20 years later. It's a different game. And many of these teams that we listed didn't even play with a 3-point line. The players are bigger and stronger in some cases. In some respects, when I look at the video from the 2000s, those teams are not any good. Now, I'm sorry. I don't mean the Bayshore teams. I mean the teams they play. The video I saw online, basketball declined in 1A. And it's probably because players either go to basketball factories or they stay in their public school or they go to the 3A Tampa prep, that route, because they don't match up. So there's no way to compare year versus year. We were comparing what each team did to their era. How did they compete with their era? Did they check the boxes, live up to expectations, and do the job of their era? And from that perspective, I think we did the best job we could to make sure we accounted for all the great teams.
Yeah. So there you have it. Feel free to blow.
I got one more thing before we go.
Huh?
I got one more thing before we go.
Yeah.
So we've been getting notes from ex-cheerleaders that want to be on their own show. I think it's Melissa Cabot. I don't know what her married name is. And Amanda, maybe. I'm not sure. But we will definitely do a cheerleading show. I don't know about next week. I think next week, what is next week? Is it either Broderick, Coach Day, or maybe a John Edwards season in review? I don't remember, but we're going to get to everybody. You should look at it as God forbid, if everything goes like we want, we're probably going to do about 20 shows into the spring, and then we'll take a break and we'll still have more content to do. So got a ways to go, but this was high demand. So we moved it up, and so we gave our top 10. Here we are. That's it for me.
Yeah. And like Steve said, if you're on this list, you're pretty dang good. Let me tell you what, buddy, you did a good job. Right. So anyway, that's all I got. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Have a great night.
Thanks, everyone. See you next week.